So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Matt Doyle on. Now, myself and Matt have been working together for the last, I think, six or so months. Matt's got a great story, typical one with the gents that I kind of work with, which is busy, lots going on, not really taking care of himself, wanting to be able to, but then sort of struggling to be able to put the jigsaw pieces together to do that. We've had a load of work, and I think by all accounts, Matt's in a much better spot than he was. But I want Matt to talk about that. This is also a really important conversation because I know there's lots of other guys out there listening to this that will relate to it. And I think what Matt will speak to on this conversation is it isn't rocket science, and it doesn't take re-engineering your entire life to be able to feel better, look better, and operate well within a very hectic life and career as well. So, Matt, before we jump off, do you want to just introduce yourself, a bit about you, what you do, who you are?
Of course, thanks, Luke. I'm Matt Doyle. I'm 31. I'm from up north, so based in Manchester. You can probably tell by the accent. Um, I work in investment banking, so software focused investment banking. I've done that for about 7 or 8 years now. I'm married. I got married in 2024. So my wife Amy. No kids yet, no pets. I think, as Luke alluded to, probably quite a hectic work life, and work life, personal life, trying to be quite social, and just trying to find the balance was probably my point to come and chat to Luke about.
Yeah, and I think everyone can relate to that. And fair to say, I'm not saying this in a belittling way, you're probably on the younger end of the spectrum of the gents that I typically talk to and work with. But I think recognising all the stuff that you're working on and talking about is the same as everyone else, right? And so it's being able to kind of plot a course within the madness of work life and be able to get the most out of yourself, but also not kind of sacrifice yourself at the altar of work in order to get where you want, but also enjoy the fruits of your labour, right?
No, exactly. I'll take the young comment. I think, I think that's exactly the point around not sacrificing your work and and changing things you do, but trying to be obviously more efficient. Try and be slightly more efficient both in your work life and in your personal life, and those minor tweaks that you can make that make home better, work better, and ultimately just everything a bit easier and flow a bit better, and then you feel better overall.
Totally. Of course, I'm biased, right? Because I would say that, but I would totally agree. Well, look, let's rewind a few months into the past. You reached out for a chat. I think you'd followed me for a little bit on social media anyway. And I think historically, you might have seen one of your colleagues from a while back that I'd worked with. You won't mind me saying because he's talked about it, Patrick Schoenagel. I think you maybe seen some of his stuff quite a while ago. Decided to reach out and have a chat. What was going on with you back then that you thought, right, time to have a chat? Let's make a change.
No, exactly. Yeah. I'd seen obviously the work you'd done with Patrick, and obviously what he'd said, and how it changed things for him, and obviously Patrick being a really high performer, thought there must be something in it. So I think at the time for me, I'd changed. So I think we started speaking in it was just before I went on honeymoon, so it was August last year. I think prior to that, it's probably worth flagging. So I changed jobs in January to a slightly different role. Everything was going really well. Work progressing quite nicely. I'd got married the year before. I had a happy-ish wife. Um, I think we've discussed some of the things. We'll probably come on to them later. I think the main thing for me was everything was going, fine at work, but I just the broader alignment of probably work, personal commitment to self, but also trying to develop internally and make sure you can be the best leader within the business. Are you 100% every day? Are you really focused and driving the best performance you can do across all elements of your life? And I was thinking probably not, and I couldn't work out why. I'd go through phases of doing crazy fitness focused, go to Barry's 5 times a week and eating 100 calories or something stupid, and that just obviously was inconsistent, but also hard, impossible to maintain. And so I think I was looking for something that could maybe be more consistent going forward, but also making sure I could continue to deliver at work without saying you need to exercise for 5 hours a day and and drop a load of stuff that I like doing at the weekends. So golfing with the lads and going out for dinners, etc. And it was just trying to find a balance that worked.
Yeah, and I think most people, to some degree, with the kind of job that you have, or when you want to be successful and push yourself, can start to struggle with that because you have this modality of, right, I'm going to push really hard at work and do it well, and you're very successful, you do really well, and rightly so. But often you could end up sacrificing your own mental and physical well-being at the altar of that. And of acute phases of some of that, I think is perfectly okay, right? And actually, earlier on in our career, part of it's like get your head down and graft, and I think that's reasonable to expect. But there's a point at which you get more senior, a bit older, more responsibilities, where actually that kind of modality just ends up like giving a lot of diminishing returns because you put loads in, you keep putting more in, but then if you start to sacrifice what you want to need at the altar of that, then A, you don't feel as good yourself, but B, it can kind of have a knock on effect elsewhere. And even the work one, if we're being totally honest, because we've discussed this, Matt, if we unpick it a little bit, some of the behaviors around were, yes, you're getting the job done, but perhaps like because you weren't as balanced at home, that had an impact on how you perform because you kind of all on 24/7, no space or gaps for anything else, doesn't actually help you in the long run, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that brought. I think it's thinking back to the when we first discussed it. There was like two things you explained to me. One was your commitment to yourself and yeah, making sure you've got your self responsibility for when you say you're going to do something, do it. And it was far too easy to use work as an excuse of I'm not going to go to the gym today because I've got to go to work and thinking it's all encompassing. And if you miss 35 minutes of being sat at your desk, that everything's going to fall apart, which was nonsense. Um, I think it was on the flip side as well, that broader taking a step back. Do you need to do everything you think you do in your day? Because it's far too easy to say yes to everything and think you're doing a really good job just because your diary is really full and you're on every call and everyone can see you on everything. But that's probably one, not good for you as an individual, but also not good for the broader team because you're not giving them any chance to shine because you're on everything and you're answering every question. I
Yeah.
think that was probably the biggest learning for me of empowering the broader team of you don't need to be with them on everything. You don't need to be on every call. If they really need you, they'll ask you. But that's both more senior people and more junior people. That the juniors want calls on their own, but also the more senior people probably think don't need you on every call. So find the balance of the ones you need to be on. Really focus on that diary work of why am I on this call? Do I add any value? And if I don't, why am I? As in, don't do it again. Has really helped, and that makes more time during the day. So that more time means you can focus on what you need to do, and then ultimately you then have more time at home to go see your wife and do the broader bits. And there's been, if anything, it's improved my performance at work by doing less calls, less things that I thought I had to do, rather than made any as in your head you think I'm going to perform worse. People think I don't work as hard, whereas in reality they don't.
Yeah, in my experience, quite the opposite happens, right? I think I've used this phrase, you might not you specifically, but just Doyle, you've heard me say this, is like you become the author of your own chaos. And the one where you are on everything, saying yes to everything, thinking you need to be on top of it, kind of, to some degree, a bit of micromanaging going on to make sure everyone's okay. Again, that comes from a place of wanting to be diligent, wanting to be on top, and perhaps that way of operating has worked historically. But as you get more senior, I think, like we just said, that can actually have negative externalities because the juniors who need empowering and to be able to learn how to make mistakes and learn and whatever else need a bit of space. But then the people who are more senior also like, well, actually, I can do this, mate. Chill out, So it's there's a bit of that. But then in giving them the space to do that, they can empower the team to be better and perform better. But also it gives you headspace and bandwidth to think about what you need to be doing. And part of your job is to be more strategic anyway. Plus, then that gives you more quote unquote time. So you've got time to do things that are important for you outside of work, and it becomes like a sort of a positive feedback loop. But the reverse can work as well, right? It's like if you're trying to be on top of everything, that's it, and that's where you get the laptop at midnight in bed versus actually I can shut it a bit earlier and have some time for me and Amy, and that's okay, right? But when you're in the headspace of got to be on everything all the time, you can't even fathom a scenario where that would even be possible, right? And so it's sort of chicken and egg to some degree. So it's like giving yourself and showing yourself, give yourself a bit of breathing room. Maybe because that's what I said to you. I said, Matt, what about as in maybe pushing back on some of those things? And you went, okay. I said, look, we just try it and see what happens. What's the worst case? Just don't do it again. And you did. You're like, oh, actually, yeah. And so then that emboldens you to do more of that. But I think that doesn't come from a place where also you're overweight, knackered, tired, stressed, and overwhelmed. And so like you want to do that bit from a more sort of feeling better in yourself place. Does that make sense?
No, definitely. And I think it's always worse in your head as well. I remember if we look back to some of the things you told me to do, I think one of them was leave your phones downstairs. And I think I responded of, I take my laptop to bed sometimes. Never mind, leave your phone downstairs. And you were like, leave your phone downstairs. It's the best thing I've ever done. So every night without fail, I leave both phones downstairs. No one's died. No deal has fallen over. There's not been any issue. And you wake up in the morning, you're more focused. And you're actually like, you sleep better. You're more focused. You're ready to look at it in the morning rather than thinking, God, I was looking at my phone at 2:30 in the morning, trying to make a list with a light. And then next thing you know, you're up, you're out of bed, you've got your laptop out, and I've ruined my wife's sleep. I've also ruined my sleep. And I also know I've just basically stressed myself out for the rest of the week. And I think that broader idea of that is that everything needs to be done immediately is just nonsense. Like there are times where things be done with haste and things need to be focused on, but that you'll know when those times are, and that's not all the time. And I think that's been a real key learning as well of just taking a step back. What needs to be done now, and what can be left till the morning, or left or delegated or spoken to elsewhere.
Yeah, it's making that piece the edge case, right? I mean, the work you do, you have transactions, there are really acute phases, and that's part and parcel. And for us to pretend otherwise is madness, right? So we have to accept that. But it's making that the edge, not the rule. But I think what can happen is that happens sometimes, and rightly so, because you have to. You know, there's a deal or a transaction has to happen, and it is all hands on deck. But then, like, that then just becomes the norm. And so then you end up this place where it needs to be on all the time. And what we've realized, and we show you an opportunity to work through, is that it doesn't have to be the norm, right? And another thing to look at, I think we've touched on this a little bit, is from a client perspective. Now, by the way, I know there are some crazy clients, some toxic clients who won't be like this, but I think the majority of people, like, why is Matt emailing me at midnight or 2 in the morning? Like, I think in a way you could say, oh, why is Bob doing that? In a way you could say, like, that doesn't reflect someone who's, I personally, as a client, would like to see all the work getting done in just normal hours, or relatively for your industry, right? I know it's pretty crazy, but like, and I think that shows that, oh, this guy's really got his shit together. Like, if it's like a mad email at fucking 4 in the morning, I don't know, that doesn't, personally, from my perspective, does that make sense?
And I think you bang on. It's been quite, as in, again, I think like if you rewind back to your COVID times where everything was on all the time, I think that kind of spread through. But I actually think that's starting to eat back out of people are looking. Obviously, there will always be times where in my role that it's busy, but also the client doesn't want to think that they have to respond at 3 in the morning. And if I'm emailing them at 3 in the morning, which I've not done for a very long time now, um, like, as in, it's just encouraging bad behaviour, but also that it's also putting probably pressure on your own team and your own individuals of, do I need to be doing this as well? And just
Mm.
because I was potentially acting
Example
like
of set, isn't it?
I was acting like a lunatic for 5 years probably doesn't mean that everyone else needs to do that, and I don't want them doing that either, because I don't think it brings the best behaviours, but also it doesn't empower them to be the best they can be if they're looking for emails from me at 4 in the morning, which
Yeah.
no one needs.
And also, if there's that dichotomy of which we discussed, that's that making commitments and keeping them. Like, if you're saying, guys, don't be emailing at midnight or 4 in the morning, but then at the time you are, they're like, well, which is it? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's actually it's you being on top and owning that yourself, right, and sort of setting the right example. And I think that breeds the right environment. And by the way, we're not sitting there saying you're going to let your team just kick up and drink pina coladas at 3 in the afternoon. That's totally not what we're talking about. But I think creating an environment in which people can thrive better. I think what you start to recognise is that actually just letting go a little bit, like just being so tight with everything, actually breeds a much better working environment. And I know you said we've discussed positive feedback, things are going well, and like, and it's interesting because it feels like the converse, right? And it's like, where's this time come from? Well, it was always there. It just wasn't being used in the best way. And I think when we start to reorganize and look at that, like, not huge drastic changes, it can have quite a profound impact, right?
No, I think that's the exact point. If I take a step back and think, what have we changed? None of it is enormously profound. It's just all it's a a compounding impact of a number of simple-ish behaviours that allow you to reassess your day, be more focused, be more organised, be fitter, be healthier, be more present, but also you don't drop the ball on things. I think it was too easy previously to just say, work's going to get in the way, or something gets in the way of something now. Now you're in that routine. You wake up in the morning, you have that cold shower because that's your routine. And if you break the routine, it feels odd not doing it. And so I think that broader focus on simple, manageable points that you can overlay over the top. And I think the blueprint approach of 8 weeks of doing a couple of things at a time, rather than my old approach of, right, I'm gonna smash this week by doing barriers and 5 things in a week, and it was impossible to maintain going forwards, has really meant that you build it up over time and it becomes second nature. So that kind of broader routine now, that with the first few weeks when you're laying them on, it's like, well, this is quite a lot to do. It's now robotic in the morning. That alarm goes off at 5:30. You're up, you're out. And those easy steps that you probably thought at the time, well, I definitely thought at the time that this is mental, I'm not going to be able to do it, are now simple. Um,
I think having that, just a few simple basics for yourself that you can commit to and achieve and show yourself that you can, are really powerful. Because again, the sort of the 100% berries, eating one piece of broccoli all day and nothing else. I mean, we're talking about exercise and nutrition here, but like, and there's more there. But like, that approach it's the same kind of approach with the work thing. It's like all in, but then like there is no wiggle room, and if something comes in to derail it, you can't. And it's also unsustainable because it's just too much. Whereas if we look at things slightly differently and go, well, what can I do given everything I've got going on, and what can I commit to consistently? Well, consistent commitment at something you might class as 70% or 60% of whatever the theoretical max of how you could push these things, done repeatedly over a long period of time, will have an absolutely massive impact versus absolutely 120% for 5 days and stop for a month. You know what I mean? I think that's where these feedback loops are, but it's just showing yourself, oh bloody hell, we've come a long way, and what have we done? Well, it doesn't seem like loads, but I've just given myself the grace to be consistent with it and been consistent with it and shown myself I can do it when everything's mental as well. When you have got a big deal or transaction, well, I can still hold the line. I might have to temper it a little bit. Well, then I think that becomes very powerful, right?
No, exactly, and I think it's that broader point as well, because these things are manageable. You don't, the self-deprecation doesn't come in, and you're not slashing the tires and getting a dishume on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then going out on the Friday because you've had a tough week. Yes, you might miss a workout one day, but the next day it's manageable. You start again, and it's having that ability to be resilient as well. So I think the broader bits of the program, which I obviously, when we worked on, was, yeah, you might not be able to go to the gym, but you can easily do a round of push-up, sit-ups, and squats in your room. As in any hotel room, there's enough in the world to do that. And if not, go in the corridor and do it there.
Yeah.
Like, the simple, manageable steps of, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be something. And I think my old approach would be, if I missed a barriers, I'd be like, all right, well, I'll start again next Monday. And but before you know it, you're back at the Monday cycle again. And yeah, I think, so that broader, consistency piece, and not, I think you explained it really well. Of, just because you crash a car, you don't get out and stab all the tires, do you? And
Yeah.
so I think that kind of broader, mindset has been really important, I think, for me, because I have got that kind of mindset of all or nothing, and not moving away from all or nothing, but trying to be more manageable in that kind of,
Within that,
commitment.
yeah, and not just you, Matt. I think most, and look, I'm the same as well. Like most of the gents and people that I work with, that is a real common one, which is it's kind of this hard charging all in. And again, that's a great skill and power to have, right? In certain situations, to be able to deploy that. That's why you're successful. A lot of the gents I work with have done very well, because you're able to go, right, boom, all in, blinkers on, let's go. But there's a point at which that just doesn't work in certain environments, right? And as we get older, have more responsibilities, more going on. If where there's that taking care of yourself piece, mentally, physically, emotionally, setting boundaries, putting your phone down, what goes in your mouth, how you move your body, like how you're thinking about structuring stuff, empowering your team. If it's always like absolutely 120%, I think it's just not sustainable, right? And so being able to take a step back and just, take the foot off the gas a little bit allows for that to happen. And it's also, I think, sometimes, and I mean you, the royal you, might not you specifically, parking your ego a bit, because I think part of your head goes, well, what's this going to do? What's the point? And is that going to be achievable? And is that even possible? And showing yourself that those simple basics are so powerful. And the more calls I have, the more, and I've been doing this for quite a while now, like I think probably the most common thing is, like, most guys say, I can't believe how impactful some of the small stuff done consistently is. And not everyone, but a large chunk of the guys I work in finance and stuff. And it's like, well, what's the biggest thing people talk about? Compounding interest. It's a no brainer. But and it's just applying that concept to oneself, and little bits of something just done over and over again. Oh my God, I feel miles better. It's like, what's changed? Not a lot. Well, that's the point, right? Just like, you put your an investment in a small fund, just over time, and just keep doing the same little bit. And then in 30 years, like, fucking hell. Like, it's the same concept, right?
No, and I think that kind of, law of compounding interest has been obviously quite interesting for me. So I think when we first started, I was like, "So are we going to be straight in the gym?" And you're like, "No, you're going to do this." And but then I think I lost about 6 kilos in the space of 5 weeks
Yeah.
by doing relatively, simple steps, not having a burrito for lunch every day, and just, simple, easy things that, one, made me, feel better, more focused, but also it's kind of helped, in the broader elements of my life as well. I think we kind of discussed earlier, I'm obviously 31. I've not got any kids or anything yet, but obviously that next stage of life's coming. I think if I'd have done that without doing this, well, I think Amy would have killed me, for one, because I was absolutely chaotic and I was out of manage at the best of times anyway. But also that kind of broader structure will mean I'll have more time to, to focus on things I need to do. I probably thought I'm never gonna be able to do certain things that normal parents would do, because I thought my job was all encompassing. It needs to be. It doesn't, because if you if you communicate your boundaries, communicate what you want to do, people are understanding. People understand that people have got a life outside of work, and those who don't need to give their head a wobble. And that, I think I was probably in the camp that always thought work came over everything before. And
Yeah.
work's very important. You got to deliver for your clients, but also you've got to be there for your family and do the bits you need to do. Especially as like your parents get older, your family has more things going on. I think previously I would probably be less present in certain bits I needed to be present in, whereas now I've just spent the weekend with my niece. It was great. Whereas previously I'd just be stood on my phone the whole time. Whereas I was like present in the room. And you come back into work on Monday, you're refreshed, you're ready to go. You bounce into the office because you've actually had a break over the weekend rather than sitting at your laptop all weekend. The alarm goes off on a Monday and you drag going in.
Yeah, yeah, and that scenario there, like the reality of your life and how busy you are is identical. There was no difference. It's you and how you're choosing to operate and deal with it. And I also what comes into what you said there is part of probably the self-esteem as well, right? You're going, oh, I had a lovely weekend. I saw my niece. I was nice with her. And so when you walk through the office door on Monday, you're feeling like, oh, that was nice. That I did something for me, and also knowing that I know what I could have done, which could have been just blindly working all the time, and I didn't do that. And that, we talk about those commitments you're making to yourself. I think that's a real positive one. And what you said about the kids piece, like, um, I'd say probably 85% of the gents I work with do have kids, right? And they're probably a little bit older than you, Matt. The difference being is they've just let what you were doing run for another 10 years and thrown a few kids into the mix. And so all it does is make everything. Of course, it's totally possible to course correct, which is exactly what I do, right? That's the point. But I didn't have the foresight like you did when I was your age to be like, actually, you know what? Things aren't 100% perfect. I need to get some foundations in. And so I think doing it now when you're a bit younger is a real powerful thing because you've now got a framework and some of the stuff we've learned, you can't unlearn it. And trust me, when you throw a baby into the mix or two, it will set the cat amongst the pigeons, right? It just does. But I think you've done the work to go, hold up, what do I do? And it's just some basics. And you've shown yourself, even when it's mental, like you can just do a few core foundations, which will make you better husband, better dad, or whatever else. And so I think this stuff, it's not like, oh, it only works in a certain scenario. It's robust, like you said, that resilience. So no matter what's going on, you can do it. And so, because I think the more I think about this and work with guys and the whole balance bit, right? It's not about time. Work-life balance isn't time. It's bollocks, right? The time's always going to be more work for where we are in our careers, I think, and up until quite a bit older. Um, so then what is work-life balance? For me, I think it's presence and being intentional and like getting the most out of the different states. And so even if you're, home life, so the work-life balance bit, the time at home with, partner, kids, whatever it is, even if that's small, if like you said with your niece, I'm there, I'm present, I'm enjoying it, I'm not glued to my phone, you will feel in balance, right? Likewise at work, if you're there focused, doing what you need to do, but on it and feeling good and energized and empowering your team, having the right conversations and being strategic and all that good stuff, again, you will feel in balance. Because if you have that there and then that at home, even if the time is condensed, so let's say you've got a big transaction and it's just half an hour, Amy, right at the end of the day, put your phone's down, you're there, your head's in the game, you'll feel balanced. Even though, whoa, I've had a mad busy day. Does that make sense? And I think that's what we're trying to optimize for, but that's predicated on how you're taking care of yourself underneath that, right?
No, exactly. And I think that broader, you know, taking a step back and then looking where we are now, if I, yeah, if you yeah, if you're eating healthy and you're doing your exercise, you're coming into work, you're feeling better, you're more focused. That means when you go home, you can have, you can be more focused on the home stuff. It's that broader ether of if you perform well in all the area, if you absolutely hyper focus and perform well in every aspect you're trying to focus on, and you compartmentalize them as you go, you'll feel balanced as you go. You flick between your different modes. You've got your morning mode where you're up and at it, and you go in the gym, and you're on the way into work. You then got your full day at work. You compartmentalize that into the right ways. To am I being strategic enough? Am I supporting the team enough? But also, am I being client focused enough? Those three areas, you deliver those. You then get home at the end of the day. You might have still have some work to do, but you have that hour. You have dinner. You then got happy partner when she goes to bed. She's absolutely fine. She knows you spent some time. And then I get in bed at 10, 11 p.m. and I feel fine because I've done all the things I wanted to do in the day. I've been to the gym. I've performed well. I know my wife's happy and I can sleep well knowing that I've not got my phone on my laptop in bed with me and I'm ready to go again. And
Yeah.
so I think the other bit for me has been also as well, like not kicking myself over the weekend. So if you're really good over the week, yeah, obviously don't go out and do a 3-day bender over the weekend, but also at the same time, go out, have a glass of wine, have a nice time. Don't treat the weekend as an extension of the week or a punishment if you've done things in the week that you shouldn't have
Mhm.
done. You just got to keep moving on and focus on because it's the law of, the law of compounding average, compounding interest, also the law of diminishing returns. If you just
Totally.
constantly saying you've got things wrong, and let's say, right, you've had a busy week, you've been out for a couple of client dinners, so therefore you're only eating plain chicken Caesar salad for the whole weekend. It isn't really going to leave you when you go back on Monday, is it? But go making sure you keep up the usual aspects over the weekend, keep moving, but also try and find those broader bits. So, like, I think one of the things that's been really interesting for me in the group chats is looking at how everyone balances certain weeks. So certain weeks you're really good on your friends, like you've been to see your friends, you've been skiing, you've done something, but not every week's the same, not every week's perfect. But if something isn't right, how do you address it, and address it in a way that's constructive for the next week rather than critiquing yourself as you go?
Yeah, that being ability to be sort of self-reflective on what's happened, what's good, what's bad, but with a real objective lens versus oh, there's some bad things or things that, okay, there's some areas that might need to improve. And it might be that, let's you say you give yourself a score on some of these areas. Well, friends is a 2. It doesn't mean you're bad. It just means probably that area has got some issues. Now, it might be a low score because you came home when you weren't your best with your missus, or you didn't shine, you shot yourself in glory for a certain situation. Well, okay, well, then again, you can go objectively. Well, what did I do? What caused that? How can I course correct and be better next time? But then also, what's been good? And so I think if we've got a regular practice where we do take a step back and review stuff, that also allows you to be more present and engaged in your life versus just being ragged around by whatever happens. And it doesn't have to be super detailed or detailed or sort of like anal about what you're doing. But I think a bit of reflection goes a very long way, because then you can work out, plan, and look at what you're doing, and you're just ultimately more engaged with what you're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's it's simple when I look back when we started, and obviously I was thinking, why are we doing some of these things, or why am I why should I not be in the gym throwing weights around rather than doing push-ups? And I think the point is, it's built, if you've got a foundation that allows you to to handle really busy times and really busy periods, be that personal or professional. In the good times, it's easy and it's great. And so it's more so about being able to manage the stressful or the busy times. Because in the good times, you fly through it and it's great. So you bounce into the office, you bounce into the gym. It's on those days where you've probably had a little bit less sleep or you've had something go on, still knowing you've got that routine, get back to it. And yeah, I think that's been the main thing for me: resilience, and just really focusing on the simple basics that allow us to make sure we can perform at work, at home, and more broadly than that.
Yeah, and look, the results speak for themselves, mate, as to why you are where you are. And I think, like you just said there, optimizing for it being mental, because that's normal, right? Like I said this before on other chats. Um, I don't want my clients to be going through life facing constant hardship, but the reality is life is problems, life is difficult, work and everything happens all the time. If we try and pretend it isn't and create some sort of weird sort of environment in which to operate where we're just hoping it all to be great, well, then you're always going to be eating shit sandwiches and being frustrated by it. If you're able to go, actually, I'm going to optimize for it being mad, and then anything less than that is a win. So, like you said, so when it's easy, you fucking boss it. And then there'll be weeks where, using the exercise example, you get to Barry's great, you can do it because you've got the time and headspace. Well, then there's a week when there's a transaction going on and there's more stuff and someone's just left your team and it's all hectic. All right, okay, let's batten down the hatches, but I've still got my standards, so I'm okay. And it's not that that's less good than a week where it's all easy. It's just you're doing the best you can with what you've got, and being able to flex and flow between those with those standards. Then it means you're not just knocked over when life gets tricky, right? And the results speak for themselves as to where you are today.
No, exactly. And I think that's exactly that. It's knowing when to, when and where to focus, how to prioritize, and how to be consistent. And that consistent doesn't need to be the same workout every week or the same intense workout. It's just the same, you know, the same mindset, approach, and delivery. It just might be a different scenario where you do it in. And I think that's been the most important thing for me.
Totally. Well, I know you're busy, Matt, so I won't take up any more of your time. Before we, and firstly, thank you as well. It's been a great chat. I've really enjoyed listening, and I know anyone listening will have got a lot out of it. I guess final question before we get off. If someone's sitting listening to this and they're like, I relate to where Matt was, but I'm in the thick of it. I'm so busy. Like, it all sounds great in theory, but how the fuck does any of that work? I don't get it. What would you say to say yourself back 6 months ago, or someone like where you were?
The busier you are, the better time it is to start, because that's if you can do it when you're busy, you'll, as in, well, first of all, it'll help you while you're busy, but also it, it's probably when you need it the most. In those times where you are really busy, I look back on this and think this is the best, the best structure and the foundation I put in. So I'd say putting it off to tomorrow and putting it off to next week, or it's the same. It's the classic, conundrum of I'll start again Monday. You're never going to start Monday. So the best day to start is on the day you're ready. If you see something you want to do, go and do it, because it's only going to be another the further you push it back, the further the longer it's going to take you to get to where you want to be. So I think when we first started, I rang you. We had the chat, and I was going on honeymoon, and you gave me some of the basics to do on honeymoon anyway, just because they were simple to apply, and why not start them then? So but I think also as well, the program's set up to allow you to, to break in and do it in a way when you're busy. It's built for people who are busy, who aren't going to be able to drop everything and start going to the gym for 5 hours a day. And so it's built in a way for busy people. So I'd say it does look as in it might feel, all encompassing a bit, there's a lot on top of you, but that's when you need it the most.
Well, mate, I would completely agree. So, although I do have a lot of skin in the game, but I would totally agree. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thanks for coming and talking and sharing your experience, because I know anyone listening that's in a similar situation to you can hear that, and it just sort of empowers them to be like, well, look, actually, things can be overwhelming. It is okay, and I can do something about it. Whether that's to work with me or not doesn't really matter, but I think you'll empower others to be able to take a look at themselves and do something. So thank you. If anyone is listening and watching and they're interested in seeing how I can help, drop me a note or find me a comment in the DM. Otherwise, have a great week, and I'll see you all next week. Cheers.